okay. The real scary thing about love is it demands vulnerability because you have to be willing to trust another person with the entirety of your being, and that you also have to let yourself be someone that somebody else can trust with their entire being. And both of those things are very scary things.
Yeah, it's breaking down the ontological barriers between you and another person.
Yeah.
And I think
and throwing into question the very boundaries by which you define yourself versus another person.
And no, please say what you were going to say.
I was just saying I think there's layers to it, and you actually have to go at it actively because, you know, there's the idea of like, oh, I'm opening up to someone. I'm like, no, because you still have your behaviors that you may subconsciously do to keep them at bay. The games that you play, you have to really want to open up to a person in that way.
Yeah, and I feel like we are in a moment where our discourse about love and vulnerability and acknowledging our own emotions is changing.
Yeah,
you know, and anytime like we're seeing a lot of different moments of change, and people react to change with fear, and so the same way that like people react to anybody who is part of a group that has traditionally held power is now dealing with a situation where that power is threatened, and so they are reacting with fear.
I will just say, quick note: this book was published in 2013.
Still,
so those changes and those shifts were just barely starting to kind of like morph into culture.
But guys like Chance could feel it even back then. I mean, like Gamergate was like months away when this shit hit the Amazon self-publish.
God.
It's like it is because it is easier and more comfortable to just say that the other person's feelings do not matter. Love and sex are just me out to get what is for me. And I have a certain right to conquer that, than to say that love is a mutual vulnerability.
Yeah. And I think that's why Chance is so comfortable with like occasionally dipping into like the Evo psych shit and the dopamine shit.
Women want men who fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like, you know, and the fake the fake science of it, because it brings him out of it's, you know, it's like that textbook like intellectualization as a defense mechanism, but done by a guy who's a dumbass.
Right.
Yeah. Oh no, he doesn't. He's very like Twitter philosopher, and he's a fucking idiot.
I was just gonna say, so Angel, you've been, and I really appreciate this, you've been really open and really candid about times in which you were not at your best. You were not doing things that were really ethical. You were treating people you were intimately involved with in not a great way. But I gather things have changed.
Yeah.
What spurred that, and what was the process like of changing those patterns?
Well, I mean, it was just this realizing that like I am a participant in my own behavior, and like I have a hand in doing these things that make other people feel bad. I think it was really like finally getting a grip around like there are other consequences to doing these alienating things beyond just me not having sexual access to these people anymore. That like if you do something that like, you know, alienates them and chooses them to, you know, remove you from their life, you are doing something that has made them feel bad. Like you are doing stuff that is like, you know, might stick with them and might like harm the way they relate to other people. And like the way you treat other people like has an effect on their lives that can ripple outward and like have an effect. And it's like I realized I didn't want to just that to be my legacy with anybody that I interacted with.
I don't think Chance ever had that moment. I think he still thinks that his victimhood in his childhood and his youth absolves him of any shitty behavior.
Right.
Or he's like, I can't do trauma to other people because I had a trauma done to me. You're like, no, that's not how that works.
Or rather, or maybe just like, you know, subconsciously or consciously, it's I can't do trauma to other people because no one cares about me enough. I don't matter enough to anybody. So I'm this free agent.
Which, like, I honestly used to be that way with my depression because there was that, like, that base level of self-loathing before, like, I really started talking to people, before I got medicated. And honestly, it took, like, my partner being like, you know, I do notice when you're like this. And I just had assumed this whole time that nobody cared. It's like, yeah, no, it's making me miserable too. Like, what are you talking about?
Right.
But, like, just to have that moment, I think that he hasn't ever had that. You're probably right. There's that baseline of just like, well, nobody cares. So this can't have an effect.
It's nihilism at its heart.
Yeah, it's hedonism used to paper over nihilism. It's like, I don't matter, no one cares, no one's going to like me for me.
Get but then my dick wet.
So I may as well just like have a good time and have a great time. And then it becomes like the papering over becomes all that he can like process or understand, because like, you know, these traumas and these coping mechanisms developed before he had the ability to look that deeply into himself or into anything really. I guess it's like what I want to ask you, Angel, is let's say there was a chance that you could reform or give Chance advice or tell him another
chance for Chance.
If there was a chance for Chance and there was a way to like redirect him, what would you say to him?
I would ask him, what do you like about yourself? And like, because
what he seems to like about himself is that he can charm or somehow get girls into
like,
bed.
What do you like about yourself independent of other people? Like what is a quality about yourself that you like about yourself? Because I've known that like in my most destructive, you know, phases where, you know, I'm not like taking care of the people around me. If I asked myself that question in those moments, I wouldn't be able to name a single quality, because the whole point is that like I don't know who I am or what I like about myself independent of the value that other people give me. And so like, and you know, I've noticed that like there is a correlation between like when I am at my most like sexual acting out and when I'm at my most depressed. You know, and it's because it's like when I'm at my most depressed, I have the hardest time finding value in myself independent of other people, so I need to find it externally. And so that, you know, that comes through wanting to have sex with people. And so the real antidote to that is just like really having to grapple with the fact that your self-worth has to come from within. You know, and that's something that I still struggle with. Like I'm married, you know, and I still have trouble accepting that I'm somebody worthy of love sometimes. And what stops me sometimes when I get too down that path is just realizing that like it is unfair to my wife to think that way. It is unfair to the other people who actually put effort into loving me.
And it's unfair to put it on your wife to disprove it.
Yeah, and it's like you sometimes you have to get over yourself to accept that you are worthy of love. It's like your greatest enemy is yourself in that sense. And it's like the more you view your relationships with, you know, women or whatever, like the more you view things as like a hunt and like a battle, it means you are ignoring the battle that you need to fight with yourself and the hunt that you need to go on within yourself for your own self-approval.
That's the thing that always like strikes me as so bizarre when you look at like you know, people acting out because of trauma or because of you know, depression or whatever, because it's basically like, how do you tell somebody like a guy like Chance that like you are behaving badly and the way to fix all the awful things you're doing is to love yourself? Because it's like, you know, our notions on, you know, changing and modifying other people's behavior are about like, you know, spurring guilt or shame. So how do you get somebody to be like, you need to change your behavior, and the way you change your behavior is by valuing yourself instead of like flagellating yourself for acting shitty.
Well, I feel like, I mean, that's one part of it is, you know, to change the way that he's behaving and convincing him that he's someone worth loving. But I think when his actions and when his acting out kind of manifests in this way through this kind of behavior, I think there's a bigger issue to sit this person down and go like, your actions have consequences. Not just the consequences that these women are no longer available for you to fuck and these friends are no longer available for you to party. Consequences in that you're doing lasting harm to other people.
Yeah.
Because people do care about you and they do love you. And I think you have to start from the other end entirely, because just telling someone you got to love yourself, he's still papering over it with this wild self-confidence.
He's making up a fake love myself thing.
Exactly. And I think you can't even touch that until you've hammered it through to somebody like this, that their actions are, you know, borderline toxic, or, you know, in some cases I would even say abusive.
Well,
I mean, not that he's like abusive, but that the behaviors themselves.
He has to hit a rock bottom.
Yeah. Well,
we shall see.
Chapter 12. Drew, what is the title of Chapter 12?
The Seductress.
Oh, God damn.
Oh, yeah.
My least favorite DC superhero.